I just hit 47 August 1st.
Yeah, you're not 10 years older, but you're close. All right. We'll go 30, 40.
I just hit 47
keep-
August 1st.
All right, keep me on time because I talk too much sometimes. I go down rabbit holes, you know that.
All right. We'll go 30, 40. YouTube on night.
What do I got it? You can want to switch from room? How we that?
So how about I press start and hold for 3 minutes?
Yeah, that's usually right.
You get a hat, I'll get a hat.
Okay, sounds good. Hey everyone, we're gonna start in about 3 minutes. Settle in and we'll see you in a couple minutes. Don't worry, everybody. We haven't started yet. We were telling jokes to each other on mute. We will start in 1 minute. It's a wild story.
Yeah. It's a
Wild story.
whole story. Went from investment banking to selling forklifts. I thought when I was getting in, I thought it was going to be investment banking. Sold forklift. Luckily to Don Howard. And then yeah, that was it. Because I'd go to all these small businesses and I'd be like, "Oh, you own your own business? That's awesome. Tell me," and like I'd ask them what their story was. And then
That was your sales
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
That's so cool. You know what though? That's Like that is magical because then you come in, you're not a sales guy, you're
Yeah.
just a guy asking about somebody's experience.
Yeah.
They open up, boom. All right, guys, let's get started. It is Wednesday, August 13th, and we're gonna do this show a little different today. I have a friend and a guest, Jary Jackson here. He works all the way right next to me. So usually he hears me doing stuff on the computer and I hear him through our walls. But today Jary's joining us. We're going to walk through his background, his ETA story. Jary's a super unique case and just an awesome guy. So let's see, we're going to go for about 30-40 minutes and then we'll open it up to Q&A. It's just after noon on the East Coast, so let's kick off. By the way, if you have questions along the way, if you want to ask them now, we'll get to them in a bit. The preferred way to do it is that Q&A button at the bottom. There's a chat function and a Q&A. Somebody can show me at a later date why both of those things exist, but let's go with the Q&A function, and we'll save it towards the end. We'll leave plenty of time. All right, Jary.
All right.
You want to do this?
Yeah, let's do it.
A little bit of background. So Jary, I met him through a mutual friend and partner of mine, John Hubbard. Jary came down, sorry, he was already in Tampa, working in a job, a corporate career, and made a hard pivot into ETA. But he has a long background ahead of his journey into ETA. So maybe we'll start there. Jary, a little bit of background. How did you get here?
Yeah, so just first off about me, I'm driven to do, big things and something in service to something bigger than myself, right? So and that's why well, I started off as a firefighter and then I went back into the military after 9/11 and shortly after going back in, I became a Green Beret and served an entire career doing all the great things that you can do, which was amazing. And then got my MBA right before I retired. And then I thought I was going to get into investment banking, and I thought that's going to be really great. And I hit a lot of walls with that, and then ultimately landed a job as a material handling consultant with Toy Material Handling through a network that I had developed while getting out. And I loved that because it touched all these different small businesses. It was recession proof, great ETA target, by the way. Little plug in there, and I was doing sales stuff, and then I liked that I could be a consultant of sorts. So I get to go to these small businesses, peek under the hood, see what makes them tick, figure out how to make them more profitable, and more productive. And then if I went out warehouse, I sold it. And John Hubbard, as you mentioned, he purchased a forklift from us. But during those initial conversations, I'm like, man, and I do this with everybody I talk to. That was a small business. I say, you have your own business. This is awesome. How did you do that? And I just wanted to know what their story was, and because I always thought that was incredible. And I'm self-limiting. I didn't know about ETA or anything. I'm like, man, I didn't know you could buy a business. I would have loved to do that. I'm like, I don't have millions of dollars, or anything like that. And he's like, oh, well, he gave me his backstory and talked about you. And it's like, well, there's actually a boot camp coming up in a couple months. And I'm like, sign me up, I'm in. I mean, he's like, I've read all that. And then he gave me the reading list. And I read the books and I went to the boot camp. And I'm like, that is what I'm going to do. Like, bar none, like 100% mind blown. I'm like, this is possible. This is exactly what I want to do. And I'm like,
So many people are just like that. They have no idea that you can go out and buy a small business.
Yeah.
And then when it sort of hits their radar and it sort of opens their mind, it's so awesome to see people recognize it. So back up a little bit though. When you were a Green Beret, where were you? Where were you stationed? Where'd you live?
Yeah, so I was in North Carolina for 12 straight years, and then we made the move. I was in 7th Special Forces Group, and then we made the move to Florida, and then I was lucky enough to spend all my time on a team, pretty much, which doesn't happen, which that's another story in and of itself. And then moved to Tampa with my last position managing the Warrior Care program. And so I did pretty much everything that you can do in the military. Yeah.
Okay, so why is it that it is so well recognized that military veterans make great ETA entrepreneurs, great operators. What is it specifically?
With my background in particularly, and a lot of veterans as well, so we select for, special forces is great, not because of, like skills or whatever, they hire talent, and it's all about the talent and that characteristics and attributes that are going to make them successful in any situation, because that's what they have to have, right? And then really they have grit, and they can, figure it the heck out, right?
Yeah.
No matter what. So they can deal with a million problems, they can multitask, they got the agility piece. And when it comes to leadership, especially in the military, people think it's like, hey, you give orders and people follow. Well, it's not really like that. It might be a little bit in the conventional military, but definitely not on special operations side and then higher stuff. You literally have a training program from day one that develops people to be or leaders in every aspect. So you have that leadership ability, hands-on stuff. You understand so many different aspects when it comes to just big picture and strategy and managing people and herding cats and dealing with problems and like, okay, well, hey, there's days where I think, I've got a million fires to put out and things are so stressful and it's all self-imposed stress. And then sometimes I take a break and I'm like, you know what, nobody's shooting at me right now. I'm not going to die. So, and
It's true. It
yeah.
puts ownership into perspective. However, the greater risk, at least in some of the operators I've seen, not military operators, but small business operators, is they get into this and have never reflected on their own characteristics around things like grit, ability to multitask, ability to manage people and teams, ability to figure it the heck out when you have no idea what the answer is.
Yep.
So all of those traits, now it's starting to become more clear to me, at least, like why military veterans are better operators than the average person once they get out. So, but it's easy to like sit here and tell that to everyone. You and I were chatting about when you were in your corporate career pre-ETA.
Yep.
You were essentially worked for a dealer selling capital equipment to small businesses. And apparently you sold the biggest account that dealer had ever had.
Yep.
How did you do that? Because it's a great point regarding that hustle you have to have as an operator.
Yeah, so like it was all about hustle, and I just walked in the back door, and this is a large 3PL, and I walked into the back door and I said, hey, I just wanted to understand the operations. The other piece is like people are kind of oblivious and they won't do things. So if you act like you belong there, then people will just accept it, and like, you act as if. And a lot of times you kind of have to fake it till you make it, sort of a little bit.
100%.
Right. And that applies to everything, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, hey, I'm just gonna walk in the back door, you think of outside the box solutions to find different problems. And all I knew is like, hey, I have this mission, I have this goal, I have to go do these things. I'm gonna figure it out, how do I get into this company? Because I think I tried to cold call them and I get the, all the cold shoulder. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna walk in the back and I'm gonna develop like, hey, let me analyze your operation for free, and I'll see if I can, come up with ways to help you save money. And I figured out how to save them $1 million based on different inefficiencies that they had and whatnot, and that landed that account.
It's an awesome story. I think so many of us are, and to be clear, you've done ETA a little bit later than some people. Let's call it the average age of somebody that buys a small business. And among the younger group, I think I would probably put myself in that age category. We were taught to sit behind computer screens. We were taught that sales is like a not a good way to be. You want to be not salesy. And all of those things, I think you almost have to throw to the wayside when you go out there and you start hunting to buy a small business, because it's the hustle that gets you to the finish line.
Yeah, and what you said about sales. So I remember when I was getting out and like sales, I don't want to do that. I think used car salesman, people think that, but like literally all business is sales. If you're even thinking about you want to, get into business and own a business, like it's literally sales all the time. But what is sales? Sales is providing solutions and meeting customers' needs. And that was one of the things that I was good at. Like even as a Green Beret, so we did everything was by, with, and through others. Like when I was 26 years old, I'm down in Colombia trying to find American hostages in areas that they hate us. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm working by, with, and through others. I'm figuring out what motivates people. What are their needs? It's not about like, hey, what I'm trying to do. It's like, well, hey, how can I help you meet a need? And you're really like just making connections and doing things. And so at any point of business or sales in general, it's all about matching solutions with customer needs. And the better you can do that, the more effective you're going to be.
Essentially reframing it not as sales.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into 3 years ago, September of 2022. John Hubbard convinces you to come to our boot camp.
Yeah.
Over in, well, it was just across the street at the Center Club. Small world. So you came there. Clearly, it struck a chord with you. But you left, and what was the path of your search?
Yeah.
Did you start right away? How long did it take? Just any detail on the actual search phase.
Yep. No, I hit the ground running right away off the bat. And I think I actually was trying to prep some things ahead of the boot camp. I read Buy Then Build, and I was like, yep, this is, and then mind blown at the boot camp. I'm like, all right, hit the ground running. I'm getting, hey, what's my search criteria? Getting my website stuff and getting my PFS and all those other fun things. So, and then just getting, you mentioned something early on, get those reps in. And I understood that, like, hey, you're not going to get, you don't want to have paralysis by analysis, hit the ground running with it and minimal viable product and just, get those reps and start learning. So that's what I did. It took me 20 months to ultimately close on my deal. And that was actually because of shifting criteria and different things for that. And originally that search, I said, I hit BizBuy, everybody does the BizBuy piece, but then it was like, okay, well, developing relationships with brokers and then figuring out like, hey, what is our sellers looking at and being able to sell yourself to sellers. So I started like doing all those things, but constantly refining my criteria and figuring out where can I best add value. And I'd learn about different industries. And I think originally I was kind of like shotgun kind of all over the place and trying to really, add that like FOMO piece, right? We're like, hey, I don't want to miss out on an awesome opportunity, but really when it comes down to being able to close on a deal, you have to have something that there's going to be a solid fit, and you got to envision what does that fit and value that you're going to add look like, because you got to sell yourself to the broker, to the seller, to investors, to the SBA, to all those people, right? In addition to yourself and your family. So,
So what would you say the issue was? Was your criteria too broad to start and you narrowed it up? Or did you find certain industries as you searched that you decided you wanted to hone in on? Like specifically, what was the evolution of the criteria?
The evolution of I wanted to go, it went big. I decided to go big early on, and it took me longer. Like I said, like my wife had gotten laid off, and so okay, well, I got a family and I got income dependencies, and so that made it so, hey, these are my minimum income requirements, my geography requirements. So that kind of shifted a little bit. At first, I was like, okay, well, hey, I'm just trying to get into it, and I can pull the trigger on something small. I almost did, and that was when my wife got let off. And then I went with the mindset, hey, I wanted to go really big because, a little bit of a watermelon is better than like 100% of a grape type deal. I've got different,
I like that.
yeah, I've got different, you've got levers to pull. You can account for what if and contingency scenarios. So if you lose, hey, your top client, and you're this big and you got this much room for error, it's a lot better. But so, yeah, specifically, I was looking. My industry's changed quite a bit, and I honestly don't remember where my final search criteria landed. I ended up I talked to 60 over a 2-year period. I talked to 60 owners in person, probably put in about 15 LOIs. So I was very, very active. Like I had a full-time sales job, but it was remote. So it allowed me to I basically had 1 foot out the door already. And
Let's say this again though. So in 20 months, just shy of 2 years, which by the way is around average for time of a search to go from start to close, you talk to 60 owners in person.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that's higher than most of us out there who are relatively resistant to going in person. And then you submitted like a dozen or so LOIs.
Yep.
Wow, that's fantastic. Okay. So you really bought into the idea that volume matters.
Yep.
You can't control outcomes, but you can make a lot of shots on goal.
Yeah, I did that because I also wanted to learn the industries that I was getting into and get some of the nuances, and that made me better at pitching to brokers, getting and being able to say, hey, yeah, I don't like that industry. Like I was looking at certain ones and then look, nope, I didn't like those, and I shifted and I pivoted to different industries. But talking with the owners and doing that gave me that knowledge I otherwise wouldn't have. And I wanted to get those reps, like you said. I really took that to heart, and I'm like, I'm going to get as many reps as I can in. Because like, hey, if I land it, I land it, and then I'll figure it out. But hey, worst case scenario, to say no, as long as I, don't act like a jerk to anybody. But
Exactly. Exactly. The shame of it is you get better at searching and making offers and negotiating and all those things as you do it.
Yeah.
And then the big shift is then once you buy, you never do all that stuff again. You go straight into operating. So let's get there. What was the business you ultimately found and
Yeah.
bought?
Yeah, so I bought a defense contractor, TCS. They were shoot, defense contractor based out of Crane, Indiana. The previous owner truly was running it essentially absentee, working 10 hours a week out of it. And they were essentially a glorified staffing provider at the time because they were handed all of the contracts. And it was almost kind of spending money for them. So they weren't trying to grow the business. And I'm like, man, this is amazing. Truly absentee owner piece, like government contract stuff. I was getting it at a discount because I had some high risk pieces to it at the time because they had one customer, so 9 subcontracts, no prime contracts, and weren't trying to grow the business, and they were extremely lean on some things. So normally, let's say, hey, it's going for this multiple, I'm getting it for this multiple down here because of those specific risks. And I had a high level of trust because an old teammate of mine was best friends with the owner. And so like I probably yes and no, like I overlooked some things that ultimately helped me get the deal done, but at the same time, like I overlooked some things and like, okay, well, I dismissed it, and that created some more challenges later on.
Would you call the customer concentration one of those things?
No, that wasn't it. It was not because they had 9 subcontracts under a single prime contractor. And so my thought was like, well, hey, all I got to do is try to grow the business. So I had, I had some government contract sales background in this piece, and given my background, I'm like, okay, government contractor, I can do this. I can, if I get a prime contract and all these other things, I can fix those risks. And then with minimal stuff, and my base case was like, okay, well, then we'll be solid. And then just government contracting in general, I felt like it business wise, it's really great as a platform for numerous reasons. You can hit some home runs. You've got all the stable revenue. You got 5 to 10 year contracts and all those other fun things. So a lot of opportunity that's in there that I saw, but also one of the big challenges that it's like that I didn't see is like, hey, even if you're going, from an absentee owner to like, hey, now I'm going to go do this, that's still a 180 change. And that was a little bit more challenging than I expected. And yeah.
So let me ask you a couple things. First of all, how did you find it? Did you interact directly with the owner or find it through a broker?
Found it through a broker. So during my search, I established a lot of different brokers. I was going to every possible source of quality deal flow that I could find. And this deal actually died a couple times before I got it. And even after I got it under LOI, like I put in a solid offer, established great rapport, and then somebody put in an all cash offer higher than mine, and they ultimately couldn't close. So then, I did such a great job selling at the beginning. The broker called me up and said, the deal's yours if you want it. Like that was like 3 months later. I'm like, heck yeah, which is perfect timing because it was either the day before or day after I got laid off. So
I remember that.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's either the day before or the day after I got laid off from my high-paying sales job. And I'm like, all right, we're all in. My wife was like, well, hey, are you gonna get another job? And I'm like, nope, going all in.
Brutal. Okay, so another couple interesting parts about your business. Where is it located again?
It's in Crane, Indiana,
And where are we right now?
Tampa, Florida.
So how does that work?
So I travel there quite often. I spend about 1 week every 5 weeks, 1 out of every 5 weeks up there in Indiana. And then I thought, because like, hey, previous owner, they're running an absentee, like and I'm there, more, I'll be good. And that's true. It's a million times better than it was before, but I admittedly would be doing better if I were there in person.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's always the case. It's harder to run it remote, but a lot of us are working under constraints, family, network, you name it. Another one would be it's a government contracting business.
Yep.
So a lot of us have heard of contracting businesses, like the commercial fence business I run is a contracting business. but what are the quirks of government contracting, pro and con?
Ooh. Yeah, that's a whole class in and of itself. But number one con is sales cycle, 2-year minimum sales cycle. So, hey, I'm in a cash crunch and I need to generate new revenue. I can't pull levers or go do anything to really fix that. So that is the biggest con. However, it's also a big positive. There's so many positives. I hate the game of the defense contract stuff because there's a big game, but especially with trends now and tons of money going into it and trying to ease regulation to speed innovation and create new things. You got the defense tech. Everybody's heard of Anduril and Palantir lately, but there's some gaps in there, and that's a bigger thing for our future that we're trying to fill there. So, but no, huge opportunities. You can hit some home runs, big time, and then you've got all the ideal things that everybody looks at for ETA. Large stable revenue. It's a must-have thing. It's not a nice to have as long as you're doing the right types of contracts. So we didn't get hit by Doge. None of our stuff got canceled, but it did make procurement harder because of all those other things. So you got regulatory risk, but it's great because you also have a fragmented market. So if you're looking for a platform or roll-ups or anything there, it's ideal for that. You've got dual use capabilities. So hey, then that's something that we're trying to push. So I'm not so dependent on the government contract revenue, and yeah, just a ton of opportunity in the government contract space, which is what I like from the business perspective.
Last question before we get into post-close, running the business.
Yep.
Is do you have investors?
Mhm.
And tell us about anything you want to share about the process of raising or the pro and con of having partners in your business.
Yep. Number one thing, if I could do one thing differently, I would only have 51% equity and raise more capital. Right up front. I would do that a million times in a heartbeat more. So there's that. So I'll just leave with that one. So I do have 2 investors that are on board, and good, bad, I hit the easy button. The brokers became my investors because they liked the deal so much. They're like, hey, you can go out and raise capital if you want, but we'll be your investors and we'll do that. And we'll help get it across the finish line. And so they helped me all the way through closing to get it through the deal, because they also wanted it too, because they had a broken deal before and they wanted to make sure this gets closed, right?
Of course.
So they're silent partners, and but because they're brokers, so they can provide some good deal flow for me, for some acquisition as well. Let's see. So I kind of feel like I missed out on that experience of going out and doing the capital raise.
Raising money.
Yeah. So that's something I want to get really good at. So yeah.
What I would say though, ironically, is the idea that a seller's broker would invest in the buyer's acquisition is a dynamic I've seen happen a lot.
Really?
Believe it or not.
Nice.
So it may sound unusual to everybody out there, but for whatever reason, I'm seeing that more and more. And it might have something to do with, brokers are in the fee business, but they don't have enterprise value. They're not building equity value, and they can do that when they invest.
Yep.
All right. So you get in the driver's seat. Give me a couple first day experience that you remember that you'll never forget, and kind of good and bad expectation versus reality.
Ooh, okay. First month was a blur. So there's that.
And to be clear, this was spring of 2024.
Yes. Yep. April 1st, 2024. Yeah, so almost a year and a half ago. So first month was really a blur. Day one was really easy. It was just but almost anticlimactic. We were at the seller's house or whatever. We just signed some papers together and celebrated, and like, all right, awesome. And then that was on a Friday, and then Monday we show up, and then it's like employees, everybody's nervous, they don't know what to expect. So it's really just, hey, calming their fears, giving them a little bit of my background, and letting them really taking the mindset that like, hey, I'm not trying to shift everything and change everything all at once, and really being a listener and learner, and like, hey, my whole purpose is to really speak with every single person, understand what they do, and how, what changes would they make, if anything, and just really alleviating their fears and listening and learning the business, because that just takes time. And I'd really focus more on the first 30 to 90, because with the first 30 days I was still getting access to things. I didn't have access to the checking account for like 2 weeks. It's just like things like that. So it's like that. It's, I'd say my advice on the first day and the first 30 days is really take it really slow, listen and learn, and don't change too many things all at once. Like one of my biggest mistakes, I think, was I spent too much cash too early on and trying to do too many changes at once. Even though for me it felt like I wasn't doing a whole lot, I'm still turning a massive ship 180 degrees around, going from like, hey, just keep the lights on, whatever, and understanding the culture and the people. That is the most important factor in post acquisition integration or transition, right? Is that culture and the people, which I did a great job of that. But all the other pieces, it's like, okay, well, learn what the business is actually doing and really see how it's performing, post acquisition, because your business isn't a spreadsheet. And that was one of the big changes, expectations versus reality. Like you have this thing in your mind and it's never going to be what you imagine it's going to be. It's always going to be different. And it's not the spreadsheet. So just forget the spreadsheet.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Because no matter what you think you're buying, you don't really understand it until you're 2 or 3 months in.
Yeah. And then when you see it, and then when you've talked about, okay, well, hey, where's your vision going to go? And you start formulating what that plan is and you develop it with your team, right? And then you start, okay, seeing how that starts to work together, then you can start doing some different things. So yeah, I got hit with all kinds of different things like day one. Like, oh yeah, that's right. I totally forgot about this. So like there are some things, any pertinent question you ask the seller, put in your reps and warranties. So there's certain things that I asked, they're like, oh, okay, we're good. And day one, I found out were not true. Biggest contract going away. So right off of the bat, my worst case scenario that I planned out in diligence is playing out. So losing our largest contract and like, oh, okay, like I had a thesis for SDVOSB status. Day one, I find out like, oh, I can't even do that because now I got to restructure, my deal. Like our acquisition entity, we had to dissolve that essentially and merge it with this company so I can get it SDVOSB. There's just a lot of little things. Day one, surprise hits. My worst case scenario playing out, and like we're pivoting and like, all right, we'll figure it out. A month in, I'm like, oh, okay, now I can breathe a little bit. But I want to say it was almost literally a month in. A guy hits a sprinkler system with a forklift. I get a call in the warehouse, it's flooded, and I'm like, oh man, now I got to deal with this. All my contract is going to get dissolved. Like it's like then you're dealing with fires and all the other things. But yeah,
Unfortunately, that is the reality of small business ownership. And your experience has been a little bit more volatile than, say, most, but it's still the case that once you get in the seat, things are not always as planned.
right.
And not just for the worse, too, sometimes for the better. Like you're pursuing a big contract right now.
Yep.
And if you were to go ahead and win that, that's probably something that was never on your radar screen.
Oh, yeah, no, not beforehand. No, not at all. This one actually was like once I did that first 90 days or whatever, I'm trying to figure out, hey, where the business is, find out about this opportunity. I'm like, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go get that. And then we're building to that, right? And so like one of the things I was talking with my team, because culture fit also, like so and understanding where you're going as a company and that vision. Sometimes you grow out of certain people and some people are no longer a fit, right? And then I would constantly say, well, hey, we're not thinking about like where we're at right now. We need to build to where we're going. Hey, this is where we collectively determine like, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish, right? And everything that we're doing, hey, we're building it to that, not where we're here. Otherwise, you're reactionary. So we're doing some of those things. But to your point of being very busy and unexpected. Like I did not, even though I projected like, hey, I'm gonna have to do more than I expect, it is still more than I expected it was gonna be. And I think that's because like the chains are lifted. You are free to be your best self. And whatever your true self is, that's gonna come out because you don't have anybody telling you what to do or anything like that. You're not constrained by anything else. It's all about, hey, your self-discipline, your drive, and whatever else that you have going.
And it goes to like entrepreneurs in some ways are like artists. You have a chance and a fresh palette to create whatever business you want. And you have the benefit of a brand, of revenue, of team, but you can shift the business to whatever part of the landscape is available for opportunity and new revenue.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got some questions coming in. And I'll come back to more of mine, but let's go out there. We're gonna be a little clunky here with our Q&A software. All right. I'll try names. Kiyoki is asking, as a former operator and sales specialist, what was your biggest knowledge experience gap post-close and how did you mitigate it?
Oh,
It's a good question.
ooh, that is. Biggest knowledge gap, if government contracting, for me. So I'd done it for a year and a half, and I've been a military guy forever, but you don't really learn all the government contracting stuff. I was exposed to it briefly, prior to getting out. But I did a year and a half of government contract sales, but that is such a beast and such an animal, that like I've been drinking through a fire hose since day one of government contracting. I know light years more than I knew prior to, and even 6 months ago. It's just that's a never-ending learning process, and that's just such a beast. That's honestly probably one of the problems with defense tech is because they get they get the tech people and the Googles and the Silicon Valley folks and investors together, but they don't have subject matter experts of the boots on the ground person combined with the government contracting piece. That is
Yeah.
such a
All right, so that's very particular to your business.
Yep.
Or are there any things that coming from your background that are more applicable to all small businesses that you felt a gap in or inexperienced? Maybe I'm just going to throw things out there. Accounting,
Ooh,
yeah. IT, people management. I'm just kind of thinking through what do all small businesses struggle with?
Yeah, all small businesses struggle with talent, in my opinion, because they're not experts in talent, and they're experts in whatever product or service that is. But arguably, that is the most important factor in their business at the same time, and then they're usually reactionary, and trying to address those issues, and then bad hires, and not having the right people that is almost catastrophic, at times for small businesses, and then which is. It's a whole nother segue, which is why I started 6 months into my company. I started a talent management recruiting company. One, because we needed it, but two, I wanted so many other whys behind that. But that and then accounting. Accounting has been a bane of my existence. To find a quality accounting company that can actually do stuff effectively. I don't know why that's been so hard to find a good one. I'm on my third one now. I fired two of them. Like
Bookkeeping?
bookkeeping and government accounting stuff. So basic stuff when I'm finding like, hey, we didn't show any revenue for 2 months. That's not possible. Like, did you not even look at this type thing? So yeah, I'm not an accountant and I'm finding errors. I'm like, okay, well, you got to go.
Okay, Lou is asking, what was your biggest surprise after you acquired? Anything you would have done differently to cover your bases?
Beside from the anything pertinent you ask of the seller, make sure you're putting in reps and warranties.
So to be clear, that's a really important point. Reps and warranties are really just promises in the purchase agreement that the seller makes to the buyer that if you get into the driver's seat, you're the owner, and you can prove those sellers are wrong in that promise, you can make a claim against them and recover money. And so what you're saying is, let's say in an email exchange or a phone call, they made an assurance to you.
Yep.
Unless you get it into the contract as a promise, a representation and warranty, effectively it's meaningless to you. And I think that's what Jary is saying.
Yep.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Because I think all of us business buyers, we have those conversations and we just say, okay, great, that's the case, boom, check.
Yep.
And we never think to go put it in the agreement. It's a great point. Chris is asking, could you elaborate on what interrupted your SDVOB status and what you would do different in diligence? It's a great point. I remember when you were going through that.
Yeah. So what I didn't know, because it's 51% ownership and control of the company. And the short version is that Jary Jackson specifically has to have that 51% ownership, not my acquisition entity or anything else. It can't be through another entity. It has to be direct ownership. So even if I own 100% of, Holdco LLC, and that has 100% ownership of this company that I acquired, that will not count for SDVOSB status. It has to be Jary Jackson specifically has that. That's just the way the regulations are set. So we had to basically merge that acquisition company into my target company, and then change the ownership on the cap table, et cetera. So where, hey, Jerry Jackson has that. And we actually had to change the operating agreement too, because they want specific language in there to ensure that, hey, I can't be removed for any reason. Nobody else can. Basically, I have complete control. So investors have to have a high level of confidence if in that sort of situation.
I think what's true here is if you're getting into a gov contracting business, there's like an attorney for your transaction. Probably a good move to also have a government contracting attorney involved as well.
Yeah, and that was something I didn't realize until after the fact. That's back to the previous question. That would be the other thing. If you're looking at government contracting, get a government contracting attorney that can address all of those different things. Because we sat down here with you, like, was it like 3 weeks or 3 weeks pre-close? And you said, "Oh, are you doing an F reorg?" And I'm like, "What is an F reorg?"
We'll save that for a separate episode.
Yes,
I
we ended up
remember
doing
that we were whiteboarding over in the common area.
Yeah, so we had to do an F reorg.
Let's put it this way. If the business you're looking to buy is an S corp, an S corporation, and you're trying to buy the equity of that S corporation, you have a problem. Call somebody. All right. I'm gonna go to a couple emailed questions that came in. John Vaughn was nice enough to ask, and this is more in line with the military veterans who are out there that might want to get into ETA. Would you advise other veterans to get an MBA when they get out as a transition to a potential ETA?
Yeah, I had somebody ask me this the other day. I love my MBA. It was great. It gave me great knowledge. It depends on why you're looking to do it.
Great point.
Yeah, it depends on your why. For me, one, I wanted the knowledge. I wanted to get the knowledge, but two, the biggest thing from it is your network that you establish. I wish I did more of that. So networking within your MBA program, huge, and then all the events that come in after that. But two, it's also a check the box credibility piece. Like at first, I was thinking I was going to use it to get a job, but if you're looking at the ETA piece, it gives you more bona fides and credibility with investors, the SBA, whatever. So if they're looking at, especially if you're trying to go outside industry, right, or outside of your previous background or expertise, they can say, well, hey, at least he's got an MBA, so it's more of a check the box type piece. It's not saying it's not a must-have thing, but it's going to, I guess, help a little bit. If you're using it specifically, hey, I need to do this to get to go ETA, like don't delay.
Yeah. My observation from knowing a handful of military veterans who have done the MBA as a transition is a few things. One, MBAs can be sort of general management degrees. So you get reps in SWOT analysis, accounting, finance, IT. You get general management. And that's a really good skill set because when you become an owner, you kind of have to be decently well versed in a lot of different subject areas, and that's kind of what an MBA does.
Yep.
And the second one is it does give, not that veterans need a reset, they don't, but it does give them that credibility factor to then be able to go be in the business world that I think is hard to get without that degree. And the last one, and it kind of leads into the next question, is MBAs do give you a decent network.
Yep.
In the business world, which is probably something a lot of veterans don't have. So that was John's next question, which is, what's your advice for building your network immediately after getting out of the military?
Don't wait till you get out of the military to do it.
Ooh,
yeah. So my last
more.
Yeah, my last 6 months in the military is fully dedicated to that. And I was lucky enough, they got the Star Network here, they got the Honor Foundation and other places. There's those veteran to business networks that are composed also of business professionals that are there. But find those organizations that are doing those, and if you can't find one of those, then go find conferences of industries that are important, and then go to those, like, hey, I'm going to get into drones. All right, well, find a drone conference and just go to a drone conference. It's like, hey, I'm getting out of the military, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Tell your story, and people are like, oh, heck yeah. Let's link up.
Good point. There's another question that came in kind of related. Were you looking for defense contractor when you were searching, or was that fortuitous?
I want to say it was fortuitous.
Okay. So
'Cause,
you didn't look at your background and say, came from the military, I have some contracting experience, let's go hunt in that area?
I might have put a filter on it, but I think it was otherwise coming across other filters that I had, and I saw it and I clicked on it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I could go after that. When I got out, I was like, I don't want anything to do with defense contracting or anything to do with that, which almost was a mistake because I alienated a big part of my network for like 3 years. So it's like, I don't want to do gun catch rate. I don't want to do anything with that. I want to go entirely separate. So that was kind of almost a mistake. So back to the networking piece, never abandon your network, but
I agree. And another thing too is like when you're growing up, it's too late for us now because we're past growing up. But it's almost like for 10 or 20 years, you build this network in where you live, in your town, at your whatever it is, school, church, sports, and you almost take for granted how valuable those people could be when you grow up. And then 25 years later, you're back in the town where you grew up, raising kids and trying to build a career. And you seriously regret not having stayed in touch more with
Yeah.
those people, whatever your background is. So I think that's the truth. Start earlier.
Yeah, and it when for veterans, anybody getting out of the military, you always hear like, oh, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's true. It is 10 times or more important than I ever imagined it was. Like everything's built on relationships. Like you're gonna do business with people you know, like, and trust.
Yes.
And like, okay, especially if you're navigating that dark area where you have never been before, it's like, oh, okay. Like I met a guy I hadn't seen in 20 years at a conference, and I'm like, oh man. And then that started a business relationship, and just moved on from there. And it's like, oh, okay, well, hey, that's how things get done.
It is. It is reality. Couple more. Jerry's a busy guy and nice enough to join us today, so we're not going to keep him too far past the next 5 minutes. So let's see. I've got one last one from a write-in, which is, what's your advice on finding a business partner post-military? And maybe I'll kind of parlay that into a related question. You bought the business as a solo searcher, solo operator.
Yeah.
Give me like pro and con for being a solo.
Pro for being a solo, it's like, okay, well, hey, you are the exclusive leader in there. However, it depends. It depends on the business and then the leadership team that it has in place and how you envision your value that's in there. In any partnership, I think you have to identify like, hey, what are the gaps? You don't want necessarily, I don't think you would want somebody that's exactly like you in there. You'd want to work with somebody that's going to cover other gaps. It's good at things that you're not great at, right? And like, okay, well, hey, if you and I were going to partner on something, for example, like, hey, I've got my strengths on things and you've got your strengths on things, and you've got a private equity piece and the fencing piece and the capital investing piece, and well, hey, those are gaps for me. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. We're a partner, if we can come together on a vision.
A good pro for partnerships is like yin and yang in personality and skill set.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then a shared vision. So you got to have a shared vision in there.
Agreed.
People always, because you always hear like, oh, it could be good, could be bad, as long as you like, hey, figure out what's that partnership is going to look like, just like anything else, right?
So then how would you go about finding a business partner? I think that's a much harder question.
Ooh, that is a harder question.
Yeah.
It would depend on it's okay. Identifying what you're going to do, right? So like, for example, right now, like, hey, I've got certain partners that I'm looking for right now, and then I'm like, okay, well, hey, where do those people live? And not like physically live, like, hey, what activities are they doing? What events are they attending? Yeah, where are they spending their time? And just trying to insert myself there and find them there. Yeah, that's a tough one.
All right, we're gonna do a couple closing questions, and that a couple of these I'm gonna steal from the podcast with CoStub that I do every other week. So one of which is running a business can be stressful. It can, if you want to, you can spend 24/7, 365 running your business. What do you do to decompress?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's pertinent too, because I'm not good at that usually because I'll run 1,000,000 miles an hour if you can't tell by the way I talk. So like,
sorry to get along, man. Sorry to get along.
Yeah. So like, I remember when I was getting out and like, I didn't want to get into investment banking because they told me I'd spend 90 to 100 hours a week doing that. And then I end up
Investment
spending-
banking sucks your blood? No.
Yeah, no, and then I was like, well, now I work. There's times where I work 90-hour weeks, but it's all self-imposed. But so what do? I have my routine, I have my things, I have my why. So every morning I start with my focus, and then I've got my 2-year-old, baby, and when I wake up with her and I hug her, and I'm like, okay, well, hey, that's my decompression, that's my motivation for the day, and I get some workouts in whenever I can, right? But I try to force myself to do that, even if it's only 10 minutes now. I'll go do a quick run, midday to just get my blood flowing and get my brain thinking and it actually stimulates me for bigger and better ideas and gets me going. So how do I decompress? It's just like I figure out what's my why, what are the things to like get me kind of recharged on things. I can't just like chill out and take it easy or whatever. So like, it's usually an activity. It's spending time with my family, focusing on my why, getting some exercise. I think those are the top 2 things.
All right, another question. We have a little weightlifting tracker in the office here, and you are both the oldest and the strongest person in our office. What's your back squat, 1 rep max?
Oh, I don't know now since I pulled my quad and hurt my back, but I'd say, oof, man, I don't know. Well, if I go back 6 months, 355.
Yikes, that's incredible. That's it, guys. Jary, do you have any other worldly advice for the socials out there?
Ooh. Go bigger, go bigger.
Why? What does big mean? Why is that helpful? Besides the watermelon or grape analogy.
Yeah, no, because you got to set your goals high. You got to hit because if you're not a person that's going to go and set massive goals, then what are you even going to do here? Because you're going to fall short. And it's like if you don't have something driving you, like I am extremely driven, not necessarily for myself, but because of various different whys and for service and everything else. So when stuff gets hard, because it's going to get hard, and it's gonna like
Yes.
you're gonna have self-doubt and everything else. If you don't have something driving you to do stuff, then it's just you're gonna quit, right? And I don't even know what that word means, but
Yes, exactly.
but yeah.
Jary, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn or LinkedIn's probably the easiest one for me.
Okay.
So I got an easy spelling, Jary. I think there's only one on there. So LinkedIn's great. Personal message, that's fine. So yeah,
Okay.
the emails will get it'll get lost, but
LinkedIn DMs it is. Jary Jackson, thanks for coming on today,
all
man.
right. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
It was fun, man.
All right.
See you guys. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.